Behind my shop, there is a stack of toilets I have hauled out of homes over the last few years, and there is nothing wrong with a single one of them. The flush valves work. The tanks are sound. Every one of those units came out of a bathroom because of a brown ring at the waterline that the homeowner could not scrub away, and somewhere in that fight, they decided the fixture itself was finished. Those toilets had another 20 years in them. That ring was never a cleaning problem, which is exactly why 10 years of bleach never touched it. 1 cup of a powder that costs about $5 a bag takes it off and keeps it off. Stay with me to the end, because the toilet in your house that grows the ring fastest is almost certainly the one you barely use, and the reason for that catches people off guard. Let me start with what that ring actually is, because everything else follows from it. Your water shows up at the house carrying dissolved rock. That is not a figure of speech. Rain falls, soaks through limestone and other mineral formations underground, and picks up calcium and magnesium on the way. Those minerals stay invisible while they are dissolved in the water. Plumbers call water carrying a lot of them hard water, and depending on where you live, yours may be very hard indeed. Now think about what happens in a toilet bowl. The water sits there. It does not move. It does not get used. It just sits at the same level day after day, while the surface slowly evaporates. When water evaporates, the minerals it was carrying do not leave with it. They stay behind and concentrate right at the surface line. Over months they come out of solution and bond onto the porcelain glaze. That is your ring. Hardened mineral laid down in thin layers, in the one spot where evaporation does its work. It is the same thing that crusts up inside an electric kettle, same white or tan buildup on a shower head, same chalk on a faucet aerator. If you have ever looked inside a kettle after a couple of years and seen a rough gray shell on the element, you have already seen the ring. It just happens to be sitting in your bathroom instead. In well water homes there is a second passenger. Well water often carries dissolved iron, and iron oxidizes when it meets air at that same water line. That gives you the orange, rust-colored ring instead of the gray or tan one. Same mechanism, different mineral, and iron staining is the stubborn one. Homeowners on wells tend to have the worst of it, and they also tend to be the ones who have tried the hardest to scrub it off. Which brings me to the bottle under almost every sink in America. Bleach is a fine product. I am not here to run it down. It kills bacteria, it lifts organic staining, it does the job it was built for. But you have to understand what kind of job that is, because it is the whole reason your ring keeps coming back. Bleach is an oxidizer. In plain English, that means it attacks color. It breaks apart the chemical structures that make a stain visible, so the stain stops reflecting light the way it did. That is why bleach whitens a coffee cup, a shirt collar, a cutting board. The material causing the discoloration is organic, and bleach dismantles it. Mineral deposit is not organic material. It is rock, and bleach has no reaction with rock. So watch what actually happens when you pour a cup of bleach in a stained bowl. There is a thin layer of organic film on top of that mineral, because bacteria and biofilm love a rough surface, and mineral deposit is a very rough surface. The bleach whitens that film. The ring gets noticeably lighter. You look at it that evening and think you finally got somewhere. Then the film settles back over the next day or two, and the ring looks exactly like it did before. You did not remove anything. You bleached the shadow and left the object. I have had this conversation in probably 200 bathrooms, and it usually goes the same way. The homeowner tells me they have tried everything. Then they list off 6 products, and every one of them is either bleach or a bleach derivative. They have been running the same experiment for a decade and getting the same result, which is not a failure of effort. It is a mismatch between the tool and the target. That mismatch is fixable, and it is cheap. What dissolves mineral deposit is acid, not a scary industrial acid. A mild one, and the one I use, is citric acid, which is the sour compound in lemons and oranges, sold as a white powder in a bag. Here is what it does that bleach cannot. Calcium carbonate, which is the bulk of your ring, reacts with acid. The acid breaks the bond holding that mineral in solid form and pulls the calcium into solution, where it becomes part of the water instead of part of your bowl. The deposit does not get lightened or hidden. It leaves. Think about a spoon of sugar in hot tea. You do not scrape sugar off the bottom of the cup. You give it contact with the right liquid and a little time, and the sugar stops existing as a solid. That is the exact relationship between citric acid and your ring. And that difference is why the scrubbing stops mattering so much. When people attack a ring with a brush, they are trying to shear hardened rock off glazed ceramic with plastic bristles. That is a losing fight, and the glaze usually loses some of it too. With acid, you are not applying force. You are applying time. Now the cost side, because this is where it gets a little annoying to think about. A bag of citric acid powder runs about $4 to $6, and a bag gives you somewhere around a dozen treatments. So one treatment costs you roughly 40 cents. Set that against what the ring has already cost. Say you have been buying bleach and specialty bowl cleaners for 10 years, cycling through a few bottles a year, plus the pumice sticks and the brushes you replaced when the bristles splayed out. That is not enormous money in any single month, but stretched across a decade it adds up, and every dollar of it went at a problem the products were never chemically able to solve. Then there is the conversation I actually get called out for. A homeowner looks at a bowl they cannot get clean, decides it is beyond saving, and starts pricing a replacement. A standard toilet with a straightforward install lands somewhere between $150 and $400 depending on the fixture and who does the work, and more than that if the flange underneath needs attention once the old unit comes off. I have driven out, looked in the bowl, and told people to keep their money more times than I can count. The porcelain was fine underneath. It just had rock sitting on it. 40 cents against $400. That is the whole trade. Quick pause here, because that gap between a small fix and a big quote is the idea behind my book, 50 Easy Plumbing Fixes, that will save you $10,000. 50 repairs. You can knock out on a Saturday with basic tools, plus how to spot a padded estimate and when a job is safe to handle yourself. The link in the description has it. So let me walk you through exactly how the treatment goes. First step, and this is the one people skip. Reach behind the toilet, down near the floor, and find the supply valve. That is the small oval or football-shaped handle on the waterline feeding the tank. Turn it clockwise until it stops. That shuts water off to the toilet. Now flush once. The tank empties into the bowl clears out, and because no water is refilling the tank, the level in the bowl drops and stays down. What you want is that ring sitting exposed to open air, or at worst, just barely under the surface. If it is still submerged, a cup or two scooped out with a disposable container gets you the rest of the way. This matters more than anything else in the process. Acid sitting in a full bowl of water is diluted acid. Acid sitting directly against exposed deposit is working at full strength. Same powder, completely different result. Second step. Take 1 cup of citric acid powder and dissolve it in hot tap water, maybe 2 cups worth, in a jug or a bucket. Not boiling, just hot from the faucet. Warm water dissolves the powder properly, and warm acid works faster than cold. Stir it until the grit is gone and the liquid is clear. Third step. Pour it slowly and directly onto the ring, working your way around so the solution runs down over the deposit and pools in the low water below it. If the ring sits above where the liquid settles, soak a few paper towels or a strip of old rag in the solution and press them flat against that band of porcelain, so the acid stays in contact instead of running off. Fourth step, and this is the whole ball game. Walk away. Give it several hours. Overnight is better, and overnight is what I tell people to do because you are asleep anyway and the bathroom is not in use. Contact time is the variable that determines your result. 10 minutes of soaking with a lot of scrubbing loses badly to 8 hours of soaking with almost none. In the morning, take a regular toilet brush and go around the band once, lightly. On a normal hard water ring, the deposit comes away like it was never attached, because chemically it is barely there anymore. Turn the supply valve back on, let the tank fill, flush twice, and look at the porcelain. That is usually the moment people call me back, slightly irritated that nobody told them 10 years ago. Some bowls need a little more, so let me cover the cases that do not surrender on the first pass. If you have a heavy deposit, the kind with actual texture you can feel with a fingernail, one overnight soak may only take off the top layers. Run the treatment a second night. Layered deposit comes off in layers, and a second pass on a bad bowl is normal rather than a sign that something went wrong. For remnants that will not budge, a pumice stone is the right tool, with one condition attached. It has to stay wet. Wet pumice is softer than fired porcelain glaze, so it abrades the deposit and leaves the glaze alone. Dry pumice is a different animal entirely, and dry pumice will scratch a bowl permanently. Keep the stone soaked, keep the surface wet, use light pressure, and stop the moment the deposit is gone. Never use sandpaper, never use a wire brush, never use a scouring pad with grit embedded in it. Those leave microscopic scratches, and scratched glaze grabs future deposit far better than smooth glaze does. Now look up under the rim. Those little openings around the underside are the rim jets, the holes that release water around the bowl on every flush. Mineral clogs them the same way it rings the waterline, and partially blocked jets mean weaker rinsing all the way around, which allows deposit to build faster. If your flush looks lazy on one side, that is what you are seeing. A small amount of your citric solution brushed up under that rim with an old toothbrush, left to sit, opens them back up. There is one boundary here that is not negotiable, and I want to be very direct about it. Never put citric acid into a bowl that has bleach or a bleach-based cleaner in it, and do not run the two on the same day. Acid mixed with chlorine bleach releases chlorine gas, and chlorine gas in a small bathroom with the door shut is a genuine emergency, not a theoretical one. This is the one way to get hurt doing something that is otherwise completely routine. If you have been using bleach in that toilet, flush it several times and give it a full day before you run a citric treatment. If you use and tank bleach tablets, pull them out and stop using them. Those tablets chew through flappers and gaskets anyway, and I have replaced a lot of tank hardware that died young because of a drop in puck. Let me give you the trade-offs nobody mentions, because I am not going to sell you a miracle. The first one is etching. If a bowl has been scoured hard for years with abrasive powders or a dry pumice stone, the glaze is already damaged. Citric acid will still strip the mineral, but the surface underneath is rough now, and rough porcelain holds discoloration and reloads faster. You will get a real improvement. You may not get a showroom finish, and that is the previous decade of scrubbing talking, not the acid. The second is iron. Well, water iron staining sometimes needs a longer dwell and a second treatment, and if your water is loaded with it, the ring will come back on a shorter clock than it would in a city water home. That is a water treatment question at that point, and a whole house iron filter is a different conversation and a much bigger number. The third is honest expectation about the word forever. A ring does not stay gone because the porcelain has been sealed or converted. It stays gone because you stop letting deposit take hold again. If you are not sure which category your water falls into, you do not need a test kit to get close. Soap that refuses to lather, cloudy spotting on glassware straight out of the dishwasher, and a crusty shower head are the 3 signs I look for walking into a house. Any 2 of those, and you should treat your water as hard. That is the maintenance piece, and it is genuinely simple. Once a month, pour about a 1/4 cup of citric acid solution into the bowl at night and let it sit until morning. No valve shutting, no water level dropping, no brushing. The concentration is low, the dwell is long, and it dissolves the thin film of new mineral before that film has a chance to harden into a visible band. Mineral deposit builds in stages. It arrives dissolved, it settles at the waterline, it bonds thinly, and only then does it thicken into something you can see and feel. A monthly light treatment kills it in that thin bonded stage, where a tiny amount of acid is more than enough. Wait a year and you are back to overnight soaks, because you let it get to the hard stage again. If you are on hard city water or a well, hold that monthly schedule strictly. If your water is soft, every couple of months is plenty. The tell is simple. If you ever see a faint shadow starting at the waterline, you have gone too long between treatments, and the correction is to tighten the interval rather than to scrub harder. Here is the plain framework for deciding what to do with any stained bowl. Look at the ring and feel it with a gloved finger. If it has texture, it is mineral, and it will respond to citric acid. If the porcelain feels perfectly smooth and the discoloration is still there, you are looking at stained or damaged glaze rather than deposit, and no chemical is going to bring that back. Then check the fixture itself for the things that actually justify replacement. Cracks in the porcelain, a wobble at the base that persists after the bolts are tightened, a bowl that needs 2 flushes every time even after the jets are cleared, or a low-volume model from the early 90s that never worked properly. Those are real reasons to replace a toilet. A ring is not. A ring is a 40-cent problem wearing a $400 disguise. And now the bonus, the one I promised at the top. The toilet in your house that develops the worst ring is not the busiest one. It is the guest bathroom, the basement half bath, the one down the hall that gets used a handful of times a year. Homeowners always find that backwards because they assume heavy use means heavy staining. Think about what evaporation needs. It needs still water and time. A toilet flushed 15 times a day gets its bowl water replaced constantly, so minerals never sit long enough to concentrate and bond. A toilet flushed twice a month holds the same water for weeks while the surface quietly evaporates and the mineral concentration in what remains climbs higher and higher. That is ideal conditions for deposit, and it is why you walk into a rarely used bathroom and find a ring darker than anything in the main bath. So when you set your monthly routine, start with the toilets nobody uses. Those are the ones running the experiment against you. While you are at it, flush the unused ones once a week if you can remember, because that also keeps the trap seal full and stops sewer odor from working its way up into the room. One last thing before you go. Every repair in 50 Easy Plumbing fixes that will save you. $10,000 exists to stop a small problem becoming a replacement quote, and across the years you own a home that becomes real money. The link in the description will take you there. For more plain talk that keeps money in your pocket, subscribe to the Mark Silverbridge channel.